taking me through that. I have a question.
This is the property valuation study. This is how money is being spent. And if you read this carefully, this literally says zero.
What do you mean zero?
The property valuation study is a scheme. It's not real.
What is it exactly, if you don't mind indulging our viewers?
It's the state comptroller, Glenn Hagar's office, manipulating the facts and saying we have to move money from this school district to that school district.
The Robin Hood program type thing?
It's all sorts of stuff. And like I said, on paper, it sounds great. And in its theory, just like the creation of the Fed way back in the Depression, in theory, it sounds great.
Is that something that's legal through our legislature, that they do these?
Well, they set the program up that's legal. The problem is the math isn't. The problem is there's no justification. There's zero law that says you, Mr. Hagar, can set property values. There's zero law that says you, Mr. Hagar, can go to a chief appraiser and demand that he go and increase property values over and above what the CAT has already done, which we already know is fraudulent. And then we even have the evidence that Don Spencer has gone to certain communities and targeted those communities. Pilot Point, Aubrey, Sanger, a subdivision that I built. They're specifically targeted. How do we know they're targeted? Because their tax rates, the average tax rate, let's say, went up in 2023 at 24%. Well, there's subdivisions and properties in those communities I just mentioned that have gone up 40, 50, 60% above the median. If it's truly the median, then the median would be applied to everybody. How do you explain in these communities that these values have skyrocketed when they don't even have the population growth that, say, Flower Mound, Double Oak have? There's no justification for it. There's no math to back them up. Ergo, they were targeted. Why? As a direct result of the property valuation study at the hands of the state comptroller.
So, but are we saying that they're selectively enforcing or targeting those areas because they feel they have the means to carry these other districts?
No, because they can, and nobody's gone after them for it. Nobody's been able to prove it. This is the first time that we know of where the evidence actually exists. People know that there's problems. People in their daily lives, they know they have problems with paying these real estate taxes. It's gotten so bad they have to decide, okay, do I pay the rent? Do I pay the taxes? Do I put food on the table, or do I buy medicine for my kid? Because the money just simply isn't there. So you have some people that say, okay, it's not that big a deal, but those people are fairly well-to-do people as compared to the majority of the population. But even the fairly well-to-do people cannot hide from this, because as I've said, what do you think is going to happen to your business when 30,000 single-family homes in that $400,000 to $300,000 tax bracket, or less, 200, hit the market at the same time? You understand the economic devastation?
Absolutely, actually I do, yeah. That's not good.
And that's a reality.
That's horrible. Well, and especially what feeds that is, I mean, most of the average people that you talk to here that, we'll just say under $1 million, they're feeling it.
They haven't paid their taxes this year yet.
Right.
But it's even worse. So you see, they get screwed because the servicers of the mortgages that have the PID in them, okay? So the people that have those type of mortgages, they actually get screwed because what does the government do, the servicer do? Well, they look at the CADs. Well, your value for the taxes is X. They're being forced to pay those taxes one way or the other in advance, and the number is wrong. The number's fraud. So you see the problem, it's cumulative. That's why I keep using that word. It's cumulative compounding.
Wow.
And not only that, if you look at Jeremy Bago's video, Jeremy's hammering on FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, HUD, and they're all guilty because, in fact, they're forcing the appraisers, they're literally telling the appraiser, you come to this number or you're fired.
And I asked him, he's a 30-year-old person, he's going to get married, he's found the woman of his life, he'd love to buy a house, he asked a great question. Why is this relevant to me? You know, like, I don't own a home. Why should I care? And I asked him, I said, well, I'm like, what's your rent right now? He gave me his address. We looked up the taxes. And I said, if that's overvalued, your rent, the landlord is going to pass those taxes to you. And while he was in the middle of being shocked by that, we were sitting in a commercial office upstairs, and I said, it was my biggest aha yesterday, Mitch, was the commercial guy. I understood, as you had said, and that the landlord passes those taxes on, and they collect those taxes forward. So the yogurt shop across the street owes triple net, and that tax burden of the owner is passed down to the tenants. And my question was to the commercial guy, as I said, why aren't the owners of these buildings concerned about this? Like you said, my tenants have to have the ability to stay. You know, are you experienced? I'm asking him, do you have owners that are actually feeling the pain of this at all? And surprising to us, he said, not really. And I'm shocked by that. But then he had an aha moment and goes, well, wait a minute, you're right. Sounds like the future's gonna happen. I was like, look, the building's 40% occupied next door. This one's like 30-something.
There you go.
You know, I'm like.
See, people make comments without understanding, because this problem is extremely deep, right? This goes all the way to the state comptroller's office. So anybody that says, well, nobody's hurting, well, yeah, you can look outside and say, hey, you know, the sky is blue and everything's great today and it's all rosy. Now, stop for a second and look at your neighborhood strip center. Look at the fact that it's probably, give or take, around 30% empty. All you got to do is go to California. Do you know in the last 11 months they've lost 4,000 restaurants?
You said that.
You know, this stuff is not rosy. Open your eyes and you will start seeing. With regard to your friend who is going to want to go buy a house, speaking to that issue specifically, there are still some bidding wars going on in certain areas. Well, let's talk about that math for a second. So somebody comes in and says, I'm going to overpay for this house by $100,000. It's $1 million home. They buy it for $1.1 million. They don't understand what they just signed up for. See, if your house is 40% overvalued, you understand that that buyer is going to take a $500,000 bullet. Now, what happens if one of them loses a job? The $500,000 bullet is coming faster.
GFC all over again.
That's where we are. So the point is, and what I'm trying to hammer down on this for the benefit of mom and pop, is get your financial house, get your balance sheet in order. The reason why we're saying eliminate the property taxes, because if you could flip the switch, right? Mom and pop would have an asset. The asset would be the house. That's the most important asset. The idea that somebody can overtax by overvaluing completely fraudulently that house and say, give me the money or I'll take it, is the definition of RICO. What I'm trying to do is flip the switch so that mom and pop can truly build an asset where nobody can take the land underneath the house. What in essence you are doing right now, the world, nationally and in Canada, by ignoring USPAP, you've created a land lease. You've created a ground lease. You're forcing people to pay on a ground lease. Well, guess what? The War of 1812 was fought over that exact issue. It was the British that came in and said, we're going to charge you a tax. The Americans, about to be Americans, said, yeah, no, because you're not delivering value for it, screw you. And poof, instant war. We are at the exact same point. The money doesn't exist to pay what's in the realm of the mob would be called the VIG. Through lawsuits, they are the responsible party in law. So the chief appraiser is the responsible party in law for the CAD. The ARB members, on the other hand, if they violate the law, that's a separate set of lawsuits. The RPAs can also be sued for perjury. And what we're stating now is when you get taken advantage of, if you've got the money and you know there's a problem, sue everybody in sight because they've got it coming. If you got them on perjury, sue them. Press criminal charges. You can file criminal charges against an RPA for perjury. You can do these things. You've got the power.
So these are rights available to the average homeowner.
Right. Now, do you really want to haul off and do that on something that's a $300,000 home? No, because it doesn't pay. However, when you're talking commercial properties and the income calculation worksheets created by the CADs are another straight up fraud, well, we think your income should be this, we think your expenses should be this, and we're going to give you a cap rate that's lower than everything else. If I walked into a bank with what they've created, within 30 days I would be arrested for bank fraud. So even on the commercial property side, they're committing fraud. On the residential side, they're committing fraud. And to that point, this is a 10-page list of laws that are being broken by these CADs. And although certain states have different laws, the bottom line is you can kind of substitute out one of the columns. But this goes into federal law, state law, USPAP being broken, Texas property tax code being violated, one after another. There's 10 pages of this. Ask yourself this: how is this possible but for intent? They intend to commit fraud. They don't give a damn about the law. It's clear. We've got them. We've got them on tape saying so.
Right.
This is the net result right here. 10 pages.
Questions, kind of a bonus round, if that's all right. Qualified immunity. Do you mind educating the public on what that is and
Right.
what is it?
So qualified immunity basically says, well, we work for the government, you can't do a damn thing about it. But you have to separate the government aspect of it, the entity, from the people. Oh, there's plenty of case law that you can chase the people. You can go after the people for the actual damages. Okay? You can go after Don Spencer. You can go after the ARB members. They don't want to talk about that. But here's the problem with their statement. Qualified immunity is based on not having discretion. Okay? So the word discretion is really important because USPAP, you don't have discretion not to use USPAP. You're mandated by the Texas Property Tax Code to use USPAP. You're mandated by the Texas Constitution under uniform and equal to use USPAP. You're mandated to use the Texas Property Tax Code. You are mandated to use the Texas Constitution, and you sure as you know what better be adhering to the US Constitution. So the bottom line is this nonsense is being spouted while we have qualified immunity. Yeah, no, you don't. You want to have a, and I just in last night's video, I even said, you want to have a debate? I'll give you 15-to-1 odds. You pick the best orators you've got against little old nobody me. I'll buy the cappuccinos. We'll have a debate in front of the public. We'll find a place that'll hold several thousand people. And you explain exactly how it is, what the math is under USPAP that you're adhering to. Because I've got gigabytes of data that proves you're not. Let's have a debate, straight up. I believe in the First Amendment. I will support your right. I will be happy to have you, Mr. Don Spencer. Come on, let's have a talk. Now, I know full well they won't do it, but that's not the point. What are you afraid of? I'm a nobody.